Good evening and welcome back to the 19th hole. We are live right here on In Between Media. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the whole damn page so you can get all the good shows from In Between Media. Every sport for DFS, lots of lifestyle articles on the main webpage. Check it out. We are celebrating my immense muy grande victoria in Mexico last week. I was on fire last week, but now we're moving on to an elevated event, the Wells Fargo Championship at Quail Hollow Club. This event means a lot, and I'm going to have a lot of fun beating Conor for the third time in a row. Let's hit the intro. As I said, Wells Fargo Championship, Quail Hollow Club. Everybody's here except for John Rahm. He's finally taken a week off. That dude's a trooper. Much love to John Rahm with his rest week during an elevated event. He gets one a year. This is his. Took a lot of cool gamesmanship and sportsmanship, where a care for the fans to not only play the Heritage the week after the Masters win, but to also go and defend his trophy at the Mexico Open last week, even though he didn't have to. And I think that speaks volumes to the kind of person he is, that not only did he go and attend as the defending champion and as the defending Masters champion, but for the Latin American community, I could tell that was huge. That dude was getting the biggest crowds, and they were fired up.
Well, yeah, and I think for John Rahm in particular, it's of the utmost importance that he be the best. I guess Latin golfer is the best way to put it.
Hispanic is Spanish speaking. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very important for him to ascend to that level. And I think he's there. I can't think of a whole lot of people, even historically, that touch John Rahm, but and then, just stand up guy, holds true to his commitments and showed up to defend and quite frankly, really didn't have to. It was a kind of a lower class tournament. And I think it speaks volumes.
I think it's incredible that he showed up and shot 4 strokes better than he did last year when he won and still lost by 4. So, I mean, hats off to Tony Finau. Our buddy Conor here. What are you drinking tonight? Because I know you didn't have any Finau, because that's your rule, as I never play Tony Finau, even if it's obvious that he's a pretty likely guy to win this thing. Yeah, you got the silver bullets. Is that?
I'm just finishing my silver bullet. I was out grilling, so I'll be drinking this Cooper's Craft 100 proof.
All right. So I'm actually celebrating because I picked all the guys, including Finau, that ended up scoring really well. Annihilated Conor in the DraftKings head-to-head by about 150, was it?
Yikes. Yeah, but to be clear, aside from Tony Finau, it's not like I had bad plays.
No, you didn't have bad plays, but you didn't have bow plays. That's for damn sure.
Okay.
So I mixed myself up a fancy margarita, not only to celebrate my huge victory and solid week at the Mexico Open, but also because Friday is Cinco de Mayo, which of course celebrates the victory over the French in the Battle of Puebla. So let's chip it back to me.
Here's to you.
And yeah, this margarita I actually mixed up with hot box hot sauce around the rim with the salt. And then I mixed up just your classic golden.
I don't know if everybody that watches this show, I know most people know this, but who makes that hot sauce?
I do.
I will give you, oftentimes I like to give you a hard time about stuff, but I will say your hot sauce is fantastic. Your spice mix is second to none. Yeah, so you should pump that out a little bit more on here. Let people know.
Yeah, I am very humble, Wendy. I love that. Yeah, if you want to build my humbleness so I can barely fit through a doorway, go to bigtimeflavor.co for that hot sauce and seasoning blend selection.
fantastic.
Let's talk about Mexico a little bit more. I want to hit the intro here for the spin it back just to get that out of the way, because I mean it's only so much I can victory lap in one show because we have to get on to business for the Wells Fargo. Here we're going. Let's spin it back. Okay, that was quick.
That's about how long the entire segment probably needs to be too, so nobody has to listen to you.
I wanted to congratulate everybody out there who tailed me this week, because I got a lot of messages saying that they were killing it too. I did have a player pool in my DFS lineups with 25 men. All 25 made the cut. That means that all 50 of my lineups were 6 out of 6s. I've never done that before. That's the great white whale. And of course, if I had more Tony V, now I limited myself to 30% to match the chalk. And if I had played more, I would have won a crap ton of money. Instead, I did triple up. So it was a very successful week overall. 6 of my 9 betting slips cashed to include all 6 of them were top 20s. And 3 of those, if I had bet top 10, it would have made even more money, but I was too chicken. So that's what it is. But 6 out of 9, 69, that's nice. I had a really, really good week, and let's keep it rolling. I'm feeling as confident as I can possibly feel, because this game will mess with your head.
Yeah. My entire focus this week is just beating you, so we don't have to listen to it again next week. But no, and Tony Finau, I will say my own bias. I think we both did acknowledge he was a good play.
Yes.
You
just weren't going to do it, and I was. And that was the real difference, because we had a lot of the same guys down below that killed it. I'm going to take a victory lap on my guy, Akshay Bhatia, finishing 4th all by himself. That dude was balling.
Yeah, he was, but he did exactly kind of what we've been talking about with him. 3 great rounds followed by a meh, not so wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with him. Like, I know it's coming for him. He's just got to get that 4th round, whether it's
only 21. He turned pro as a high schooler. That's the dude hasn't gone the normal route. Like, usually you go to college for a couple of years, then you play on mini tours and qualify through it. It's just the sequence that almost all these top golfers go through. Even the world-class guys went to at least a year of college before trying to qualify for the PGA Tour. And Akshay Bhatia is on a temporary membership, but he just earned himself a more permanent membership card to the PGA Tour. So he's going to see a lot more events and more elevated events in the future, including this one. That was huge for him at 21. What?
Yeah, no, you can't dispute it, man. He's good. He is good. And like I said, we're both right there on him, and we keep playing him every single week. I mean, and anybody that watches us is probably in the same boat. So the week that he puts the 4 rounds together, everybody's going to have a nice little payday. So you take a little bit of bumps and bruises, and now just to be ahead of it when he does hit. So yeah, I can't say anything. EVR,
consider ahead now, because that was a really solid play at really long odds last week. And that we were all over. Another guy we were all over that crushed it is your guy, Eric Cole.
Yeah, Mr. Cole.
He's doing so good. I'm glad I'm with you on him, because it took me a little while to kind of watch him a little bit more to just see what you were seeing. And now that we're both there, it's like wheels up. Eric Cole's playing out of his mind right now.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's going to end up being a right now thing. I think he's like the real deal. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
He's another guy gonna be bumps and bruises along the way, but he's just one of those guys that's always reasonably priced in DFS. He's always got good odds in the betting market.
It's hard to get guys like that be consistent, and he's been consistent this year for the first time ever.
Yeah, so it was nice to see him doing well. I was just about to touch on EVR, who you kind of were not a fan of my call. I'm telling you.
He looked great at first, and I was like, I'm about to eat crow on this motherfucker, aren't I? And he did fall apart in the weekend, so I salvaged it, but he did make the cut, I guess.
Yeah,
first round leader.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess the winning score that Rom had on the money, but of course I didn't expect Finau, who I bet was the first round leader, and he was the second and third round leader and winner of the damn event. So it went opposite of what I thought.
And again, I think Finau, tip of the hat to Finau. I think it's important to acknowledge that, like,
he's on the verge of winning a major, isn't he?
I think so.
He's got that fire in his eyes. He's out there looping for his son 4 hours after he wins, just to hang out in Mexico longer with his 5 kids.
If there's anybody on tour that I want to eat crow about, it's Tony Finau. Just such a stand-up dude. I mean, he's a great guy.
I'm glad that the nicest guy on tour is burying you every week. It's so touching.
I'm telling you, if I say I'm on Finau, don't play him. If I say I'm staunch off of him, like,
he's playing.
Hammer everything you can find.
Right. All right. Let's hit our drop for the club twirls. We're gonna bet on some golf this week, and I'm getting a little more aggressive. I was afraid I was gonna get skunked last week, and of course it's my best week ever.
Should we do maybe over under on whether or not you let it go to the full intro, or
yeah, let's not hit the button before it's over. Man, I was twirling some clubs last week. Viva Mexico. That's all I got to say.
And Sufrabo has entered the chat.
Oh, yeah. He's alive and well this week. No, we're twirling clubs because we want our bet tickets to cash. I mean, really simply put, we want to pick the outright winner. That's always the best payout, is when you can get a guy win the damn tournament, win you some money. And then, of course, we can throw in some top 5, top 10, top 20 bets on some of these lower guys. Or even if you really feel great about a guy, throw a winning outright and a top 5 and a top 10. Bet all of them, because if he wins, you win all 3. And that's the real nuts. And so I hate Rory McIlroy's odds this week. This dude has won the tournament 3 times, and he's 7-1 on DraftKings, mostly around that area and all the other books I saw. 7-1 for a guy who's playing like dog shit lately. I don't get it. Conor, talk me off a ledge on your guy, because I don't want to play him at all.
I think that number is unbettable, and I mean it's 6.5 most places. I mean,
gross.
Okay, I do not share your opinion that he's playing quote unquote like dog shit. Now, his last 2 times out, probably not the best. Missing the cut at the Masters, pretty embarrassing. The word on the street is he took a couple weeks off because of mental health things, which is, again,
never like to see.
These guys are human.
I didn't say he was playing like dog shit. I really meant to say he's playing un-Rory like, because
that'd be better.
His worst dog shit day is still better than 80% of the guys out here on their best day. So I'll cut him some slack. He's still an awesome player that we love to see play well. I just haven't seen that form of Rory lately.
I think the tough thing about Quail Hollow is, I mean, this is like tailor-made for Rory. There's a lot of draw shots. There's a lot of dog legs that set up for the draw.
There's dog legs that set up for distance too.
Yeah.
Where if you hit the right shape shot, you can sit in the wedge area where the shorter guys just can't reach there, and they're hitting mid irons instead. And that's why Rory's won here 3 times, because he just muscles around this course, and he's just target practice with wedges. And this course is tough enough to challenge guys that aren't finding those deep landing areas.
Yeah, and the other part I was going to mention is, I think it's like the last 5 people that have won at Quail Hollow. A lot of the stuff that Rory's struggling with, i.e. the putter, some of the around the green game, hasn't really figured in to how they won. So
Sure.
One thing that continues to be consistent for Rory for the most part is the off the tee game and the distance. He's still leading the PGA and average distance. So those two things, as we get into DFS and of course breakdown, Bo and I agree on are very important this week. So I don't know that you can blind fade Rory, but I do think that number is awfully short for somebody who's not in great form.
Yeah, and let's go over the course a little bit more before we get too far down the betting board. Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte, North Carolina. Par 70, 7,100 yards, so not long, but there's some long holes. So a lot of these courses get a bunch more longer holes than Quail Hollow, but the distance comes from just a few holes that really stretch it out. Otherwise, it's pretty short.
So they actually have it set up as a par 71 this week, and they got it stretched to 7,500, which actually is going to make it one of the longest on tour.
Yeah.
And that does play in contrast to how they ran it for the President's Cup. But the other point too is where some of the par fives aren't necessarily the longest on tour. The par fours here, I think they have 8 that are over 450 yards. So par fours here are actually fairly long. And like Bo and I just touched on, there's a lot of dog legs. There's a lot of creeks that run like parallel with, with the fairways. There's a lot of trouble with sand. It's a relatively tight course with tree line fairways. And then assuming that you're setting yourself up correctly, then you've got greens that for the most part are guarded by fairly deep greenside bunkers in almost every hole. So, this is one of those courses that can punish you in a hurry. And if you don't know your way to think around this course, you're going to be in some trouble. So there's a couple of guys that I'll touch on that I really like just based on course knowledge, course history. But like I said, I think approaches for a lot of these guys are going to be a little bit longer. Bo already kind of hit on it. Some of the guys that maybe are shorter off the tee are going to have to rely on those longer irons. What else to know? There's a really
16, 17 at 18. Yeah, the Green Mile.
So the Green Mile, in my opinion, I think it may be the toughest 3-hole stretch on tour. I know that there are other 3-hole.
Yeah, it's definitely the toughest 3-hole finishing stretch on tour. I think it rivals the Bear Trap and those other, the Copperhead, the Snake Pit. It rivals those 3-hole stretches that are more in the middle of the back nines on those courses. But to end your round on Sunday, especially with 3 of the toughest holes in golf, that's going to make some really interesting scores because I have a winning score of -12, which is kind of in the average of where it's been. But it could be 15 or 16, and it could be single digits pretty easily here. It really depends on what the conditions are going to be like.
So I'm significantly higher than you are. I think it is that 15, 16 range. One of the defenses of this course being that it's down there, coastal North Carolina, sort of coastal, down there in the Carolinas.
It's pretty inland for Charlotte. Charlotte's pretty far inland.
But it does play similar to a lot of the South Carolina, some of the northern Florida courses, in that the wind plays a pretty big defense here. And at least last I checked this afternoon, the worst wind that they're going to see is about 12, 15 miles an hour. And
okay. So not an issue.
No, that's like nothing here. They are going to have a little bit of thunderstorms scattered on Saturday, but at that point,
it's just rain delays. They'll have like a 10-minute delay and then pick back up.
Right. So I don't think the weather is going to play a part this year. And typically at this course, just the time of year and so on and so forth, most of the time that's why you see a lot lower scores, is that because the weather does come into effect on an already tough course. So taking the weather out, I think Bo's guess at 12 is decent too. I think that's probably the low end of the spectrum. I think the high end is probably more like 16, 17, but I don't.
So you're expecting good scoring. I think you might be right because the last year when it was single digits, or no, 2 years ago at this course. Last year, this was played in Washington, D.C. at TBC at Potomac. So it's not the same course as last year, but that was the only year they did it at another course because of the President's Cup. And they moved back to Quail Hollow for this week. And it's 2 years ago, the winning score was -8 when Rory won in 2021. That's where I'm getting this, is the stronger field because it's elevated this year is going to make the scores be better. So that's what put me in the 12 under range, because I was thinking 10 to 15 was your spectrum, at least what I thought, and I just pretty much planted myself right in the middle of it.
No, for sure. And I don't think it's a bad guess. I think if the weather does in fact hold off, we are going to have a little lower scoring than probably what most
definitely
anticipated. Just to hit it real quick before we get into the bets, a couple of key stats that I did look at: driving distance off the tee.
Off the tee for sure, huge. That's the heaviest thing I have is strokes gained off the tee.
For sure. And then I mixed that with ball striking, which, if you don't know what ball striking measures, it's essentially strokes gained off the tee plus strokes gained approach. So it's kind of a hybrid metric. Good way to kind of get an overall feel of how.
Yeah, it's like strokes gained from tee to green minus the around the green.
Yeah, exactly. Take out putting, take out around the green, scrambling, any of that. It's strictly off the tee plus approach. I did do par 4 scoring. I also did some driving distance, because distance does prove to be pretty valuable here. Most of the winners,
it's an advantage here.
Well,
for sure, a lot of times shorter courses don't have an advantage for longer hitters, but the way they've set it up.
See, I don't think it's a short course at all. 7,500, I think it's a pretty long course. And if you look at historically, when they're playing some of these higher elevated fields, or just in general, when the Wells Fargo has been held here, they usually do stretch it to 7,500 plus. It's 7,530 is the low end, 7,545 is the high end. And what I was saying about driving distance is, if you look at, I believe it's 4 of the last 5 years that the tournament's been held here, the person who won the tournament was also in the top 5 for driving distance on the PGA Tour at the time. So there is a correlation there. The last thing I looked at is, because there are some guys that are shorter knockers that we really like, I did look at approach from 200 plus yards, just to get a feel for some of the guys that are shorter off the tee, as well as some of the longer par 3s that they're going to come into. So if you're modeling, or if you have interest in doing research on your own, those are some key stats that I looked at that correlated pretty well with the winners.
Yeah, I threw in bogey avoidance too, but mostly the same as what you're doing. Maybe we're just differently weighted. But par 4 scoring, especially and off the tee, is massive here, because there's so many par 4s. And of course, if you're not in a advantageous spot in the fairway, you're not going to score here. It's very simple. And if you are, the approach shots are challenging, but not like everything in the world. Like proximity didn't play too heavily for me, because I wanted to see guys just get to the greens, because it's not overly tough to putt here. It's a flatter course. It's not really, there's not many elevation changes. The greens are fairly simple when it comes to tour average putting metrics. But off the tee, just so heavily weighted this week, because if you're not good off the tee, you are not going to score. And if you are good off the tee, you have a chance to score. And that's really what you're looking for, is those guys that put together 4 rounds at 3 or 4 under par, instead of the guys that shoot 65 and then 75.
Right. Yep. Consistent, well-rounded, I guess deliberate golfers is kind of what I'm looking at.
Patrick Cantlay. Are you talking about Patrick Cantlay? Because I love Patrick Cantlay. 12-1.
Was it deliberate that tipped you off?
Yeah, that was a great segue, because I used that exact same word in my article for Betting Pros. Is he's deliberate, but deliberate means 2 things. It means slow paced. It also means intentional. And I think he does that intentionally, especially when the chips are down on a Sunday or in a high pressure situation. Is he slows down not just to collect himself and to focus better, but also to get inside his competitor's head, because we've known him to be an amazing, one of the best match play players ever, because he's so good at the mental game. He never gets high or too low. He's just flatline, and it drives dudes crazy, because he shows no emotion. He's like the Tim Duncan of the PGA Tour. Like, you can try to get in his head, it ain't going to work, because he's not going to change his expression. He's not going to say a word to you. It's just silence and flatline and focus. So I don't care if he plays slow. It probably drives his play. I play fast. I can't stand slow play, but I can see on the PGA Tour where it's a lot like baseball, where it's mind games, and it's also, you want to be in your own rhythm as a player. It's such an individualized game that maybe the dude's just slower. Like he makes his moves slower. I know chess players like that. I know poker players like that. And it drives you crazy, but really they're not going to enforce any rule against him because he's usually holing out earlier than most guys.
Yeah, I mean the name of the game is getting in the hole with the fewest amount of strokes, right? So,
and he's damn good at it.
I mean, if he takes a little longer than the guy that's getting a bogey on every hole, but he's parring and birdie on every hole, I guess pace of play should stay about the same. And I do think some of that pace of play stuff is a little blown out with Cantlay.
Yeah.
I have watched him. I've watched feeds on ESPN that strictly follow his group, and yeah, he is slower. But he's not Bryson DeChambeau.
Kevin Na was way slower.
Yeah.
You had guys that got complaints every week, not just Masters week when you're in the second to last group on Sunday. Like that's going to be amplified. But I never heard any pace of play concerns until that Masters. Like that was there's guys are slow, and they're in the news every week for like this dude just needs to speed up. Kevin Na's been in this. What's his name? Ben Crane was always a really slow player, but it always comes down to like he's doing a lot of this intentionally. It was confirmed when he hit the hole in one the next week at the Heritage and tweeted out, like I officially tweeted the video of his hole in one and said playing faster. And I thought that was so hilarious because this dude knows, he's very aware that he plays slower, and that he thinks it's funny that he's in the news for playing slow at the Masters. And so, of course, he's going to be jester on the next. If you hit a hole in one, I'm making a big ass tweet the same way. Like, oh, look at me! I didn't have to shuffle my feet 38 times before a putt.
I would have stood on the tee box and cleaned all the grooves on my club individually, and then
so the hole still takes the same amount of time.
Yeah. Nah, so anyways, I mean, getting into the bets a little bit, obviously Patrick Cantlay is probably where I would start my betting card.
Yep.
All the reasons that we just kind of talked about, but a couple of specific things that I really liked about him. He's in the top 5 for overall ball striking. He's in the top 5 for par 4 scoring. He's number 1 in this field from 200 plus yards. And outside of that, I mean, he's actually sneaky long too. I don't think people actually realize Cantlay's.
He's so far ahead of everybody else on strokes gained off the tee that you're like, that's kind of weird because you don't think of him as a great driver of the golf ball like a Keith Mitchell or a John Rahm. Like those two guys jump off the page, and you think of like who's the best off the tee. Those two guys come right to my mind. It's not Cantlay, and Cantlay is beating both of those guys in strokes gained off the tee, which is a great combined metric for distance and accuracy in placement. So this guy is an incredible driver of the golf ball and also great on approach, and he's good enough around the greens and on the greens to be a contender every single week, especially in these elevated events where pressure is a little higher.
Well, and the most important thing about Cantlay this week, as far as the betting market is concerned, is it literally almost doubled the odds of Rory McIlroy. Yeah, sign me up. I mean,
I think he's more likely to win than Rory. That's how I come to it.
And 100%, if I trust numbers and I trust my eye test and combine the two, Cantlay at 12-1 is by far a better bet than Rory, in my opinion. Who's the next guy you like on here?
So I liked Finau until I saw his odds were only 14.
Yep.
So that jumped me right to my next guy in my top 3 in my model, which is Victor Hovland, the young Norwegian. Dude is built for this course. It's the kind of course that doesn't demand an amazing short game or anything like that. It's like if you're great off the tee, you're going to score here, and he's amazing off the tee, and he's also a pure iron striker. So if he's forced to hit long irons, there's not going to be anybody in this field better than him at that shot.
Yeah, and I think around the green game, which is where Victor struggles, is not a huge deal here.
It's neutral here. That's the one thing. We're not saying it's not important. It's just not any more important than any other stat.
So I like that number. I will say this: I use a database to kind of look at multiple books, and he is sliding to 14 in a lot of places. So if you have
Victor is.
if you have access to DK where he's still 18,
yeah, DraftKings is still 18 right now.
I would grab that sooner than later if you're interested in Victor, because that's gonna probably nosedive. He's getting pretty popular.
All right. I know you like Jordan Spieth. I just wasn't there. I kind of flipped a coin between him and Victor. Spieth also came to like 35th in my model, so I wasn't really liking his off the tee game too much. It's so important here, and he's extremely erratic off the tee. The joke is always Jordan Spieth is in the woods off the tee and somehow saves par or hits a miraculous shot to 2 feet and makes an easy birdie. That's Jordan Spieth's game, and it doesn't work here. And he hasn't really played well here either.
Nope, and I think those are valid concerns. The things I do like about Jordan and kind of why I'm
here we go.
No, the reason I kind of like him is just surprisingly to your point, like he finds a way to avoid bogeys, right? He's
bogey avoidance, heavily weighted. He's going to pop.
Yeah, every single time. The other thing that he does really well versus the rest of this field is he scores on par fours. Thank you, John.
John Blythe is one of our favorite guys now because they loves the content.
So I'm with you at the same number. If you can still get Victor at 18-1, I would take Victor over Jordan. The thing is, you can get Jordan as high as 20-1 in some spots, and if that's an option for you, depending on your market, I would take Jordan at 20. So
that's tempting, but I think I'll stick with my guns on Hovland. I also like 25-1 Jason Day. He's won here before. The dude is absolutely on fire this year. I think he's made top 10 in 7 out of 9 events. That's pretty good. The Aussie's found his form. He's amazing off the tee. And if he's putting wedge in his hand, which he's been doing a really good job of this year, I think that's why his scoring average is so much better this year. Is he's put wedge in his hand more often, and we know what he can do from 100 yards out. He's just throwing darts out there. Jason Day as a prior winner who's coming in blazing hot. That's incredible odds at 25-1.
Yeah, I'm all over Jason Day. He is actually my favorite to win the tournament is Jason Day. So 25-1 in most spots. I will take that every time. I also love him for this stretch all the way up and through the PGA Championship. I wrote him up this week in my PGA Championship preview. I would grab Jason Day numbers anywhere you can while they're still high, because there's chances are pretty good he's going to win before that, and then I think he might win that too. He's playing like the Jason Day of 10 years ago, and really is showing no signs of slowing down. So I would hop on Jason Day, especially 25.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. To answer Royal's question, I wouldn't, because I don't really like him this week, but Connor's saying that he's at least good enough. If you get a good number on top 10 or top 20, go for it, according to Connor. For me, I haven't seen any good enough numbers to play Jordan yet, so play accordingly to how Connor sees the odds, right? I mean, if you get a good number, what top 10 would be plus 260 at the most,
give or take,
and then top 20, you're almost looking at even money. That's not good enough.
Of those top tier guys, though, I don't know that you're going to get a better top 10 number than you're going to get on Jordan. So if you want to play some top 10 on a higher tier guy, that's probably the best number you're going to find is on Jordan.
Okay, so I saw Jordan at top 10 plus 400, so that's okay. I think that's okay. 4-1 for him to get top 10, top 5.
Here's the thing, not
top 5.
Just briefly to answer like the question on Jordan before we move on, like if Jordan Spieth shows up on Thursday, you're gonna know right away. Like if Jordan's ready to rock and roll, your T10 is locked up.
Yeah. T10 officially, I just 220. I was looking at the wrong column.
You're gonna know on Jordan by probably about 1:00 on Thursday what the results are.
Yeah.
So he'll either come out and storm the gates and be top 10 and probably top 5, or he'll come out and, to Bo's point,
miss the
cut all over the joint, and we'll see him slamming his trunk on Friday afternoon. So
yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of in between with Jordan, which is why if the number is similar, I would probably lean Victor. Like if you can get
Yeah.
Victor at 18, Jordan at 20, I would take Victor. If you're getting Victor at 16, Jordan still at 20, I would take Jordan.
Yeah, it's pretty close. But that's a great question, Royal, because we're kind of split on it. Are you on Ricky Fowler this week? Because I kind of am. 35-1 for him, the way he's playing. He is technically a past champion here, but it was 11 years ago in 2012. Ricky Fowler won the Wells Fargo here at Quail Hollow. Can we count that as course history here? Really? It's a different course now.
I feel like
It's
you're
the
just
same course, but the same course, but it's been changed a lot.
I honestly feel like you're just teeing me up to tout my PGA Championship column because Ricky's a huge favorite of mine for that too. No, I love Ricky here. I love the low ball flight. I love the fact that Ricky is creative and can shape shots either way. He's got
especially right to left.
He's excellent around the green typically. The putter has been actually, in my opinion, what's been holding Ricky back. And I know
he's still like top 60 in the world in the PGA Tour. He's been average putting the ball this year.
And that's the thing, right? Ricky average is still better than 3/4 of the PGA. So, that hot fire putter that Ricky was known to have, a few years back hasn't quite returned. But in my opinion, the rest of his game has. So I love that number on Ricky.
Yeah, 35-1 to win. I'm looking at plus 800 for top 5 and plus 360 top 10. So you're getting 3.5 paid out to 1 just to get top 10 for Ricky. I think that's a great number. I have a pretty big drop off after Ricky, though. Do you have anybody in that mid range?
Not really.
Are you going to agree with everybody I say today?
No, I mean, there's a couple guys in there I would take a couple of shots at. Keith Mitchell is right there at 65-1.
Cashmere Keith
on Bermuda. Crushes the ball off the tee. The concern for him is not from tee to green. The concern for him is what he does when he's on the green, and his best putting surface is Bermuda. So, like the form, think he's playing well.
His last 3 tournaments, not great.
Not excellent, but it's Keith Mitchell. He's streaky. And I think it does set up as good as a course can for Keith Mitchell. Bombs it fairly accurate off the tee, Bermuda, longer approaches. It's not a slam dunk, but I don't hate the number on him.
Yeah. Okay. That's 65-1. Let's see. Yeah. I dropped down to Patrick Rogers at 90-1. This dude is on fire. If you don't know who Patrick Rogers is, you need to check him out because the dude's playing out of his mind the last 2-3 tournaments. And guess what? Back in 2015, he finished runner-up to Rory McIlroy here. And that was when he was 22 years old. So there's some course history when he was a very young lad. He came here and almost took down Rory. Well, actually, he got runner-up, but he lost by 7 strokes. That was when Rory just demolished the field. But Patrick Rogers at 90-1 is an extremely soft number for a guy who's playing at really high rate this last month or so.
Yeah, I don't disagree in the form.
God, I'm trying to get you to find one.
I'm not going to play Patrick Rogers, but I can't fault your logic. I mean, he's currently playing very well. He's played well at this course. There's not a whole lot to argue with Patrick Rogers at current. Now, I will say Patrick Rogers can get absolutely abysmally ice cold and not make a cut for 8 weeks straight too. So
it's true.
So it's a volatile play for sure. But I do think with a guy with his form, I don't think that's a horrible bet. I would be chasing probably more of like a top 20 bet on that.
Yeah.
You might be able to get some decent odds on that.
8-1 top 10.
That's not horrible. I would be.
Let me go down. Patrick Rogers plus 330 for top 20.
I feel
3-1 top 20 is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that one. I don't know that I feel great about the top 10. This is a pretty stacked field.
It is.
Um, Going down, a guy that I have some interest in, and this doesn't happen often, but Ben On at
I
130.
get why he popped for you because of the driving.
The driving, and actually, this was surprising to me. And I won't belabor the stats. No, most people don't want to know the depth of stats, but I will say, pretty much every stat that I looked at with him, he rates out. I mean, fairly well. I mean, like top 20 in almost every metric. So, and that's over the last 24 rounds for the way I ran this modeling. So the only thing that holds him back in this field is he's not fantastic from 200 plus yards, but he doesn't have to be because he bombs the ball. So
Cheers, mate. Virgil Callan tuning in from Manchester, England. Cheers. I already drank my margarita.
oh, so that means it's about to get real up in here.
Yeah. So Manchester, what are they? 8 hours ahead of me.
Up early or late? How's that work?
They're in the wee morning hours.
But yeah, so I mean, in seriousness, I think 130 to 1 on Ben On is actually, that's a pretty good value, and you're going to be able to get some top 20, top 10 market on that as well. And he's playing decently right now. Ben On is another guy like Patrick Rogers, very streaky, very
Gross.
golfer, but very streaky. So
I'm smelling a side bet here. Because I have a guy at 130 to 1 that I'd like to square off with Ben On, and that is our guy Hayden. Don't Buckley me this week. Buckley 130 to 1, and incredible plus 900 top 10 if you're into that sort of thing. But top 20, let me go down here. Where's he at? Got to keep going down. He's down here a ways. Oh, I went too far.
Are you looking at
Come
Hayden?
on. Yeah, Hayden Buckley.
I like Hayden Buckley. While you're looking
plus 400
for a top 20.
Yep. 4 to 1 for top 20, Hayden Buckley. I will put him up against Ben On this week. Deal?
Deal.
For a beer.
Deal. Absolute deal. And so to be clear, I like Hayden Buckley too. Like I wouldn't hesitate to bet Hayden Buckley as well as Ben On. Our bet aside, Bo. Hayden Buckley, no secret if you watch this show, we've been on Hayden Buckley for literal months now.
There's some great stats on Hayden Buckley. I love Hayden Buckley's stats.
And the thing with Hayden Buckley is, his shortcoming again is that that proximity metric from 200 plus.
Approach game, it's pretty rough.
But his driving distance is, again, he's another guy that's not terribly short. He's going to average somewhere in that 300 range, 290, 300.
Number 4 in the PGA Tour standings. Number 4 in strokes gained off the tee.
Yeah, and so I mean he's excellent off the tee in terms of the combined metric, distance, accuracy, all those things. I would like him even more if he's just a touch longer off the tee with that proximity stat. So between the two of them, if you're only going to play one, me personally, I'll lean with the longer ball striker, which is going to be Ben On. But I like both his bets.
Okay, and then the Buckley stat that I love is his scoring average. If you take away round 2, which is usually on Fridays, something about Fridays, if you take away his round 2 scoring average, Hayden Buckley would lead the PGA Tour in scoring average by a half a stroke over Jon Rahm. That's how amazing he is 3 days of the week.
That is some solid golf analysis.
That's incredible.
I don't know.
He's been like that for a month where I think his round 4 scoring average is 67.67, which is ungodly low. So if Hayden Buckley makes the weekend, this dude's going to be in contention, which he has done the last 2 weeks. He's made a top 10 and a top 5 the last 2 weeks. And the guy this hot going into a course that sets up for guys who are great off the tee, which he is among the world's best. That's what I'm looking for with Hayden Buckley.
Don't hate it. I don't hate it. The knocks on the two guys that are at the same number that we're both talking about, I think they're equally good bets. So I'd feel good for anybody who bets either of them or both of them. The last
that's as deep as I go. So you have the floor.
My boy Eric Cole at 200.
I knew it. I thought about it. He'll be in my DFS pool for sure.
I'm not going to quit him now. 250 to 1. Play that. Play a couple of each ways.
Can't do it. Can't take him away.
Play a couple of each ways. Like I said with Eric Cole, he is going to win eventually. I don't know if it's going to be here, but there is not going to be a whole lot of events in the very near future where you're going to get Eric Cole at 250 to 1. I mean, that's a really deep number for a guy.
His top 20 number, which I believe is stealing money from the casino, is plus 650 for top 20.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think that this is one of those times you maybe catch the books sleeping a little bit. Like this is a pretty cool number.
This is the books not sleeping, but just lagging.
I mean, you look at the guys that he is deeper than. I mean, Danny Willett, Sam Ryder, Justin Suh, Webb Simpson.
Yeah. So Eric Cole definitely, especially a top 20 bet. I love that bet. Wendy wants to know if Eric Cole is your Van Rooyen of the week.
He's my Van Rooyen of the week, except that he can actually play consistent golf. So
EVR was like, I'm the first round leader. Look out, world. And the rest of the term, you're like, whatever happened to that guy?
I'm telling you, he spent a little too much time on his mustache and a little too little time on the practice.
He had the full on beard this week. He looked good in those joggers.
Yeah, he was looking nice. I was taking the victory lap a minute early on that one. Want to do some
all right. Yep, let's make sure we don't slam any trunks, if you know what I mean. Oh yeah.
The club as well. This would be a wrestling slam.
The guy always cracks me up. He looks like Kip, like Napoleon Dynamite's brother. He's like in the drug. He looks so angry.
I said, "Come down here and hit me, Napoleon."
You know I'm training to be a cage fighter.
What? Worst reflexes of all time.
All right. Top of the board. We're going to talk about the same guys, aren't we?
Every week. I'm reading his comments over here in the sidebar. Virgil's cracking.
Yeah. Virgil's going and telling a story about birds and old birds that legged it with his wallet. So yeah, he's providing the side entertainment for us here this evening. Top of the board, you got your Rory McIlroy chalk play, and you have a bunch of the guys we already talked about.
You were saying like the royal you, not me personally, because I will have Rory, but I will have very limited exposure. I will have FOMO Rory exposure this week, but I don't feel that he's the best play at the top of the board. He's got to come back and prove himself a little bit. Not that I don't think he could win, because I 100% do. Just that at the top of the board, that pricing,
the value's not there.
The value's not there. 100%. That's exactly where I was going with that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Shoffley's looked good here before.
I mean, like I was telling you personally, I'll be dropping down to Cantlay, who's projected at 18% rostership right now, one of the lower owned over 10K. So you
said 18%?
18%. And that's
no way.
That's not,
that
bad. Number will get lower in the tournaments, because I feel like the
Rory crowd's going to come in,
and casuals are going to play Rory. They're going to play Tony, especially. So I love the Cantlay play in the betting market. I absolutely adore the Cantlay play in DFS. I think the leverage is a nice starting spot. You're also getting them at 10-5, which means you probably can keep yourself out of the sixes.
Yeah.
And like I said,
I found that to be true.
So
I found lot easier to make lineups with my favorite guys this week, which always makes you feel good because some weeks it's brutal to build lineups around your guys that you really like to win. This week I felt it was pretty darn easy to build a good lineup with the guys I wanted to play. It's skipping chalky guys with course history like Rory and Tony and Max Homa. Max Homa's won here twice, but he won last year at a different course, and then his other win was eons ago. So, and of course, we've been talking about Max Homa's kind of iffy recent form, where he's been un-Max like, where he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been good enough to win. So we really should beware of that chalk on Max Homa, especially as the defending champion. He's going to get plenty of it because he's typically more expensive than this. And the 9,400 is going to draw the flocks to him.
Yeah, I think Max Homa hasn't quite earned the right for us to say he's not losing. He's just not winning. Like I think that's very much a McIlroy thing, where you look at the overall skill set, the overall stats, and you go, man, this just doesn't line up. And people have the impression he's playing like shit, where he's not really playing like shit. He's just not winning. Max Homa, to be frank, the last 3 or so times out is playing like shit. Like his stats are good enough to keep him high in some of these models, but he's still not. There's something very broken there, and I think you need to get that figured out. And this is definitely not a course to get your head right. So
no. Yeah, it's among the tougher regular courses, even for elevated status type places. This is going to be on the tougher side scoring wise, because even 15 under is pretty tough over the course of 4 days to only expect rounds around 67, 68. If that's a winning score, then that's a tougher course. Of course, we get down to Hovland at 9,200. We both like him. He scores a shit ton of fantasy points on DraftKings, 90.5 per week, which is 10 more than his neighbors, Sungjae Im, and 23 more than Matt Fitzpatrick at $100 more. It seems like a pretty smashy spot there for Victor Hovland in DFS.
Love Victor Hovland, number one in the field over the last 24 in ball striking, which we talked about being a pretty critical piece of the model. I'm all in on Victor Hovland. Every other stat outside of putting, he's actually been doing quite well. His around the green game, he gets a really bad rap for having a terrible chip-in game. It's not terrible. It's just not good. And I don't think he's going to have that much of it in play this week. I think it's going to be a lot of off the tee and a lot of approach. And then we just got to hope that he drains a couple of putts more than he typically does. And we're in business with Victor Hovland.
Well, and last time we saw him here, he was tied for third in 2021 that was the last time this tournament was back at Quail Hollow. Last year, of course, was at TPC Potomac. But Hovland, last time we saw him on this course, tied for third. That just says that we're confirming the fact that a course that's set up well for Victor Hovland means that he plays well at that course. So it doesn't always line up that way, but it tends to at this course for us. And then I think Justin Thomas winning here at the PGA is going to build up some chalk for him. So I'm going to skip that and go down to Ricky Fowler and J-Day in that same range. J-Day at 9,000, Ricky Fowler 8,800. I can leave JT on the side of the road for those same prices.
Well, and somebody's got to help me understand why JT is popular right now. Like, he's not doing literally anything that warrants being up above these other two guys.
He's been a top 20 guy for a month.
And for
2 months.
His off the tee game is so. I mean, you want to talk about Jordan Spieth being out of control.
Well, and he's never been good on approach either. So when his drives are erratic like they have been, that's why he's not scoring.
Well, so I disagree with you on Justin Thomas' approach game. Flashback a year ago, Justin Thomas was probably number one in the world on approach, but
on short approaches, yeah.
But
overall approaches,
I will say, like, when we're talking off the tee game being of the utmost importance, Justin Thomas doesn't know if it's going 50 yards left or 40 yards right, and that's a scary thought here. So I'm going to pass on Justin Thomas. 100% Jason Day, Ricky Fowler, coming up huge in my modeling. Love both of them this week. Love both of them for the next 4 weeks, like I already kind of talked about a couple of times. So I think that's a heck of a place. Actually, you want to get real different. Start your lineup: Hovland, Day, Fowler, and then go from there. So have the big 3 guys in the 9s and play the rest of your dudes in the 7s. I think that's a way to get different.
Strong. It's really strong. I'm not huge on Cam Young or Sam Burns. They're nice players. Tyrrell Hatton fits well here because he's great off the tee, but the rest of his game just kind of hasn't been there. So I'm cool being out of the mid 8s because I think the low 8s are strong.
I will touch on Cam Young just really quick before we go to the low 8s and 7s. Cam Young actually rates out 6 in my modeling. And we've talked about Cam Young. He's always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And this actually is a course that I think kind of fits him pretty well. It mitigates a lot of around the green, which is not his
putting. His putting
is right up there with Will Zalatoris, and we've talked about that a few times.
It's so painful to watch.
But number 2 in the field over the last 24 in driving distance, and number 7 in the overall ball striking.
He absolutely nukes the ball.
And he is able to shape it somewhat. It's not his preferred shot, the right to left, but he does shape the ball decently. So I actually will be back on Cam Young this week. I've taken a couple weeks off, and I just like how this sets up for him. So,
yep, we got Tom Kim and Sahith Theegala. They kind of rate out well for me. I'm off Theegala. I just don't think he's accurate enough off the tee to really contend here. But Tom Kim, for sure. He's just such an amazing ball striker. Doesn't hit the ball far, but he's the kind of guy that's good enough with a long iron to overcome it. And then you have previous champion Brian Harman down here that hasn't been playing well this year. He's looked really bad this year. But this kind of course where Brian Harman seems to just show up, and 8,000 is a little steep for him, but I think he's getting the hometown I play really great here all the time type markup. Maybe some extra chalk there too. I really don't know.
I didn't even look at him because it really honestly wasn't even like a thought to me. Just because if I were going to play somebody at 8,000, I like Tommy Fleetwood so much better. I mean, he rates out in the top 25 for me. So at that 8,000 point, I would rather play him. But for argument's sake, I can tell you what Harman's coming in at.
Arguments.
Brian Harman, only 5%. So, and
nice.
To that point, Fleetwood's at almost 13%. So,
wow, leverage on Harman. I think
I'm
the extra expensive Brian Harman is not chalky, which could be an edge.
Could be. I still don't think I'm getting there.
Keith Mitchell, I think, is a better option at 7,800. So, and Wyndham Clark's great off the tee. A lot of these guys, you like Siwoo Kim, great off the tee, can score. These are the guys you want to play in DFS over a Harman, who's really not going to score you a bunch of fantasy points, even if he does make the cut and chase the top 20.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, I honestly am a big fan of dropping down to 7,600 to Taylor Moore, who pops way big for me on the model.
So big.
Huge, the biggest. Everyone is saying.
Let's see where he came up on mine here.
So driving distance, he's in the top 30. Overall ball striking, top 30. Par 4 scoring, number 3 in this field over the last 24.
Yeah.
Putting, number 7 in this field over the last 24. And then proximity from 200 plus yards, he's in the top 30 as well. So $7,600 for a guy that rates out that well, number 7 in my model overall. I think that's a really good value, and allows you to stack a little bit at top because that gets you down in the mid 7s. And he's played as of late. I mean, it's not like he's a bad play.
No. Keegan rates 19th, but Siwoo is 10th, and Chris Kirk is 11th in my model. So those are some decent values there. I didn't trust my numbers on Matt Kuchar, who came in 12th. Skipped right over him.
Hey,
Hayden Buckley.
that's an official rule of this show, right? We don't play Matt Kuchar.
I play him sometimes. I play him on easy courses that don't require any distance at all. He does well there, but Hayden Buckley at 7,400. Just that dude scores so many fantasy points for his price.
Yeah, and again with Hayden Buckley, I think the biggest concern with him is not the longest guy, and then that 200 plus metric. He's pretty not great. He's in the 90th in the field from 200 plus, and he's 45th in the field off the tee. So I would like Hayden Buckley for a lot of reasons. I will have some of them sprinkled in, but I would definitely go pretty light on Hayden Buckley this week. If you want to play Hayden Buckley, I would bet him more than I would play him in DFS.
Yeah. Okay, and then I have a guy just ahead of Cam Young in my model at 16th. Can you take a guess?
In the sevens?
Yeah, 7,300. JJ Spawn.
Yeah, I do. Go ahead.
He's rated higher than Cam Young in my model, and Joel Damon has good course history here too. But JJ Spawn for the same price is going to score more fantasy points. Again, DraftKings is about scoring more points than the other guy. It's not about if you win or finish. You basically want to hit 6 out of 6 on your lineups, making the cut like I did last week. And that's really the goal to winning, is you want as many guys scoring points for the last 2 days as possible, because those are extra birdies and extra eagles and extra pars that you can add to your score. So I think I'll take the guys that score more fantasy points at the price, and JJ Spawn is doing really good for his price.
Yeah, I like JJ Spawn too. This recent form mostly. If you like, for me statistically, the way I built, he does not rate out super well. But for me, JJ would be more of an eye test. His approach game has been really, really solid, and the putter, though it doesn't rate out well statistically, his putter actually has been pretty decent too. So I don't hate the JJ Spawn play. What do you think about your boy, Mr. Kurt Kitayama?
What's
think,
his price?
other than I wish that he had played last week instead.
Right. He had to take a week. He had played 3 weeks in a row. That was rough. But yeah, he was runner up in Mexico last year, so it would have been really nice to see him chase it again.
7,200.
7,200. I like it. He does make a lot of birdies. His tee accuracy doesn't really go hand in hand with this course, but this course does allow a lot of right to left shots, which he's good at. Low ball flight, he's great at. He's a bomber and a half. He's top 10 in the PGA Tour in distance. So if he's finding his groove off the tee, as in he's hitting some fairways, then yes, I would love to see Kurt Kitayama. Unfortunately, he hasn't played a course of this caliber in a few weeks, and it might be pretty challenging.
It might be, but I kind of thought maybe you were off of him a little bit, and
I'm a little off of him.
Just to sell you on him a little bit. He actually is number 6 in this field from 200 plus yards, which is
I know he's one of the best long iron hitters in the world. I just don't know how many of those he's going to actually have to hit because of his distance.
I think every par 5 and all the par 3s.
Yeah,
200 plus yards.
Yeah, we all know now by just watching the show that Kurt Kitayama with a long iron is world class.
So I kind of like taking a couple shots at him.
Hey, I would be very happy for you if it hit, but for some reason it just doesn't feel right. He didn't score well in my model, so sorry, Kurt. It's nothing personal. I'll let Conor take the glory next week if you do awesome. Sam Stevens, 7,000.
I'm mad you beat me to it. He was my guy a couple weeks ago, and I have number 14 in my model. Love Sam Stevens.
He's 21 in my model, which is impressive enough.
Yep, love him. 12th in driving distance, 25th in ball striking, 10th in opportunities gained. Not that we care tremendously about that. But it does figure into that ball striking metric. I mean, that's the type of approach game that he's got right now. Is he is not only nails on approach, but he's knocking it close. So love Sam Stevens at $7,000.
And he's the same price as Akshay Bhatia. This is a rare week where I will not play Akshay Bhatia because his off the tee game is not enough to be good here. He's not the guy that's going to score here. I'd be extremely surprised if he backed up his top 5 last week with something solid this week. It's just the course is not the kind of course where he does well at. But that wraps up. Like if you have guys in the high 6s that you like, let me hear it, because I pulled up my top 25 golfers that I was going to put in my pool, and there was not a single one under 7,000. So I'm going to do everything I can to not have to use one.
So I'll fill in the blanks.
Thank you.
Rounds out my 19 players that are in my pool this week. I do have to mention before we go into the 6s, just to mention again, Ben On rates out 20 in my model.
You've been on.
Yeah, so Ben On 7,100, and another Ben, but not the same spelling. Ben Martin 7,100. Another guy we've been playing pretty consistently, who also plays pretty consistently. So 7,100 on Ben Martin. Joseph Bramlett, somebody at 6,900 who I think is a pretty good play if you're in the 6s. Number 10 in total driving distance. He's in the top 20 in the proximity range we looked at. He's top 20 for bogey avoidance. So
I played him last week, didn't I? Yeah, I talked him up, and we both were on Bramlett last week, weren't we?
We've been on.
We were on Bramlett last week instead of Luke List. That turned out to be genius because Luke List predictably imploded and missed the cut. And everybody was shocked and stunned that all the chalk on Luke List for no reason other than he was propped up by some bigger shows. Bon voyage to the Luke List last week. And he has good course history here. Unfortunately, he's playing like absolute trash right now.
You should go back and clip our Luke List clip from last week and post that.
It's so good because Bramlett was our guy last week, and he made the cut and it made some noise. And Luke List just fizzled completely from the start. But yeah, I agree on Bramlett. Bramlett's worth a shot at 6,900. He scores because he's so volatile. He's going to score you some points. If he makes it to Saturday, you're sitting real pretty with his numbers.
And he truthfully is playing very well this season. So you mix driving distance, you mix all the approach metrics that we're looking at. His par 4 scoring is excellent at 23rd in the field. So 6,900 for Bramlett seems underpriced. Our boy Eric Cole, who rates out number 9 in my model, already touched on him for an outright. Excellent in bogey avoidance, excellent in par 4 scoring, great putter. Eric Cole at 6,800 is a steal. That's somebody who should be up in the 7s, in my opinion.
Bingo. Yeah, that's a good point. I just have to mention my guy from NorCal just had a baby. Cameron Champ last week. You got to cheers me for that one because that was just gut central. Gut check.
Gut. You and I both thrown our hands up in agreement.
Yeah.
For the Cam
But it was weird that we were both in agreement on a guy who had only made 2 cuts on the season before that. And I was like, he's from NorCal, just had a baby, so of course.
I was like, so that's your logic. All right, well, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. And there you go. So Cameron Champ was top 10, wasn't he? Yeah.
One of the 5 greatest rappers of all time, Dylon Wu, at 6,700.
My guy.
Dylan Wu, we've decided is the better of the Woos. Definitely has been playing better.
Even though Brandon played better last week.
I'll let you in on a secret. I still played Brandon last week, just so I could tell you I did it.
He was in my DFS pool too. Because I held up next to one another. Dylan was the better value last week. Brandon played better because that seemed to be his course. He's been top 5 both 2 years in a row. So good look, good for him. But overall, Dylan is playing better this year.
For sure. And I don't think that they're a tremendously different golfer. And the interesting thing is that Brandon would be probably high 7s in this field where Dylan is mid 6. So I think 6,700, if you really got to get down here, which if you're going to play guys above 10K, you may find yourself down here trying to balance the rest of your lineup. I think Dylan Wu, 6,700, rates out 31st in my model, and in this field is actually a pretty standout guy this low. I mean, this is a stacked field. And then my last guy, very last guy, and then we can get out of here. Showed up last week, 21st in my model, $6,500. Alejandro Tosti.
So yeah, did you hear the story about him?
Which
he played a Korn Ferry Tour event 2 weeks ago, and that's how he got into the Mexico Open. He was 444th in the world, played a Korn Ferry event, and qualified for the Mexico Open. And what was it? Gosh, I can't remember. Something about he got DQ'd or something at the Korn Ferry Tour event or something. I can't remember. Damn it. I had a really cool fact, but needless to say, he took a penalty and it cost him a lot of money at the Korn Ferry Tour event. And he got to the Mexico Open and finished really high, and he qualified for this event this week based on his performance last week in Mexico. So yes, he got DQ'd in the Korn Ferry Tour event from a penalty. Then he played Mexico and made enough money to finished high enough to qualify for last week. Yeah, and then he of course qualified for this event, which is elevated. So talk about a big turnaround all of a sudden.
Well, dude, and he's like, I mean, we did research last week. He was on the radar. We knew who he was. He was in player pools. It wasn't out of left field at least for us. I think for a lot of people, this guy nobody had any idea. And then he just starts showing up on optimal lineups in DK over the weekend. A couple things to know about him. He is actually, over the last 24 measurable rounds for him, 12th in this field for driving distance. He's
nice.
37th in this field at $6,500 for overall ball striking. So your tee to green metric. And then long irons, he is 26th in this field, and opportunities gained, he is 12th in this field. So this is a dude that sticks it close, has a good long game.
Toasty.
Really here.
All right, Toasty, you heard it here from Conor Coughlin. Well, I appreciate everybody joining us tonight for the 19th hole of the Wells Fargo Championship in Charlotte at Quail Hollow Club. It's a really cool event, elevated this year, $20 million purse, which means $3.6 milli to the winner this week. So all the big boys except for Rom are here. And if you watch the whole show, you know who we're going to play based on all of our research and data and experience and training in the matter. So good luck, everybody. Get to cashing. Let's see you next week. Whoop, whoop.